This is TWiT.
This episode of Tech Break is brought to you by ACI Learning. Audit Pro from ACI Learning modernizes the way your team learns. Earn NASBA-approved CPE credits through engaging training curriculum led by highly respected industry experts. With more than a 90% completion rate, Audit Pro courses are proven to be the most effective and efficient way to earn your CPE credits. Learn more at go.acilearning.com/twit.
E3. I don't know if TWiT has talked about this yet, but this is something we have been talking about in Engadget quite a bit because we were trying to figure out, like, hey, E3 is the big video game trade show, typically happens annually in LA, although I forget if there was actually a live one last year. And after, in 2020, it was canceled because of the pandemic. They've been virtual for a little while, as I recall. But E3 2023 is officially canceled. And to me, this signals like a huge sea change for the video game industry and like the media landscape around gaming too. Any thoughts on this before we dive further into it?
I will say video games were the first kind of tech thing that I cared about as a kid. I remember reading about E3 in GamePro and Nintendo Power. It sounded like Disney. It was like, oh my God, I have to get to E3. I was lucky enough to report on E3 for a couple of years for various publications. Yeah, and I agree. It feels like this is, they haven't said that E3 is canceled forever, but this year is canceled. And, the reasons why are there's multiple. All the publishers have their own Twitch streams, Nintendo Directs. They don't really need to pay the ESA a site fee to tell the world about the new Zelda game or to tell the world about the new Assassin's Creed or whatever it may be. So I do think that the idea of kind of like a centralized trade show to show trailers for new games is kind of, especially if you're like cost cutting or like looking at like, do we really just spend all that money, fly these people out? It's like, it doesn't make a ton of sense when you can get just as much engagement for free on Twitch or YouTube or whatever the case may be, or hosting your own event where you're kind of like what Apple does. Apple doesn't go to Macworld anymore. They have their own shows, they control the production from A to Z. So if you're Electronic Arts, if you're Microsoft and Xbox, at most, why don't we just have our own show where we control everything and we can keep the costs to where we like them? So yeah, it does feel, as a rapidly aging gamer, it does feel a little sad that it's like, oh man, E3 is like, it used to be really cool. Like it's hard to, if you're 18 years old today, you probably don't understand what E3 was.
Kids these days are so spoiled. They have a perfectly realistic Mario movie that they can go see that looks exactly like
Which I saw yesterday. It was awesome. It was great. There was enough like fan service in there to make me happy. But yeah, it does feel sad that E3, like the shiny event, our Oscars, our like big event of the year is now like kind of going away.
It's kind of depressing. Anthony,
what's funny? What's funny, Nicholas, is I was going to say, to me, one of the saddest moments of my life in tech was the day that we're all walking out of Moscone at the very last Macworld. Now, the last three were already, Apple wasn't even coming.
Yeah,
it was mostly all of us guys from, Gizmodo, Engadget, to, all the other sites out there, Mac OS Ken, Merlin Man, all of the top guys, Brett Terpster, everybody. We would all get together, hang out, enjoy each other's company, see new tech that was coming out, enjoy all of the 1,300 cases. That was the joke at the time, was it's like, case fest. And it was like, sad to see it go, but we'll be all right. And I swear to you, ever since then, we get together about the same time every year and start messaging each other. Man, I miss you, bro. I wish I could see you. Or, it's kind of funny. And, Luria, the aforementioned Callie Lewis, like I talk to her literally every day. And, Macro was when, we would see each other in real life and get to hang out. So that part of it is going to suck. But you are so right. They can do so much better with their own. And once, Google I.O. and, Facebook's event, and then again, WWDC has already proven to everybody that you should kind of just run your own event.
If you're big enough.
Much better. Yeah, if you're big enough. So where it hurts the small guys, the guys that are creating things to move the industry along. And a lot of companies, this is so crazy now, a lot of companies come from that last back wall where the tiny little small companies. I work for one of those companies now that used to be on the back wall. They made a cool plugin for printers called Printopia. And now we're Ecamm Live and, Skype call recorder and one of the
cool.
best live streaming platforms. But I remember when those guys were teenagers with the little table in the corner. And after I worked with them and I got to meet them again, I was like, man, I swear I met these guys before. I just happened to be cleaning the Macworld like business card box, and I found Glenn's card. And I was like, Glenn, I did interview back in like 2013. I interviewed you about like Printopia or eyeglasses. And it's funny that I work there with them now. And so many good companies came from that small, Backwall, Spigen, Anchor, Belkit even, they were just the tiny guys in the corner, and now they're phenoms,
It does feel like we're losing something, right? So like Nicholas, like I'm right there with you. Like my formative tech moment was I was probably 5 years old and I saw Super Mario Brothers 1 at my cousin's house, and I was like, oh, lightning struck my brain. And I was like, oh, everything is different after this. So I remember like crying and wailing and like not wanting to leave that room at all. And I got an NES shortly after. But yeah, games were always my first tech love. So I also read about E3 and GamePro as a kid. It was like in the 90s, be like, oh, this is the coolest thing. I'd love to go here at some point. In high school, I was an electronic sales associate at Office Max, which made me industry. I was like, oh man, I was just excited about the possibility of even potentially getting to go. Never actually went in high school, no. But yeah, I enjoyed going to the show. Like it was really cool to like see these events, see some of the booths. I went shortly after the Switch launch, so I saw like a whole bunch of stuff, and ahead of like Mario Odyssey, Nintendo had like a crazy booth for that. It is like, it's an incredible thing, but it's also a weird thing because it is a trade show. It's a place made for business deals. It's not really the place where you always go to see the shiny new things. It's a weird thing. It's a very strange thing because yeah, all the companies can do their own stuff now. And also you've got PAX, you've got other ways. You've got the Summer Game Show. You've got Jeff Keighley like doing his own shows and premiering trailers all the time and being really like buddy with developers. So the landscape is just so different. Like there is no room for E3 anymore, sort of. And I understand why. I'm just sad about it personally. Yeah.
Same. Yeah.
Yep. Anthony, any thoughts? I don't know if E3 was on your radar at all.
No, I mean, it was definitely, I had the same experience as you guys as a kid, where I would read about it a lot and think about going. I think that once I got into writing about tech professionally, the gaming world was sort of so separate that I didn't really spend a lot of time there. But my sense of it was also that it was like a beast, right? It was just so big, and it's
so big, so many people. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting to wonder about, like you guys were talking about, there's so many other game events on the calendar. I imagine others will come up as sort of filling that vacuum for E3, but where is there still room for like the giant trade show that like is just a giant convention center that you have to like, you get tired, just walking from one end to the other.
I feel like that's Gamescom. So that's the thing in Cologne, Germany, which is bigger than E3. Like Gamescom is freaking huge. And I've done Gamescom. I did 1 year and that was a horrible trip, but Gamescom itself was kind of cool. But yeah, that is a thing that still exists, I think. And that was always like a better place for your European and Asian developers to kind of join up and talk to each other. So I think that'll still be the thing, but I will miss E3. E3 like represented so much of gaming for me, but yeah, things are just so different now.